Hello and good morning. I hope your coffee is hot, your tea just right. May the cold and the snow and the rain of this season in the Northern Hemisphere only be a blessing to you this week. May it fill our reservoirs and wells and bring us deeper into rest when we need it. I'm Grover Wayman Brown, and this is Grover Reads the News. I have a summary of 4 news items for you today. Would you like to hear the news? If so, keep listening. If you're listening on a podcast app, I provided time markers for each topic in the show notes, so you can skip ahead if you'd like to hear specific topics. If you're joining me on Substack, you can scroll down through the digest to specific sections. And with that, let's hear some news. First up, we have U.S. news about homelessness. The number of people in the United States who were living outside or in a shelter facility jumped 18% or more in 2024, more than 770,000 people, according to the annual point-in-time count, which is conducted by counting every person that can be seen living outside or documented in a shelter facility on one morning in January. The point-in-time count was released on Friday. Jeff Olivet, the outgoing director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, says homelessness has been rising since 2017, driven by a massive shortage of affordable housing that's pushed rental and housing prices up. Research finds that when rent goes up, so does homelessness. The rise in homelessness stalled during the pandemic, Olivet noted, when sweeping federal aid helped keep people housed. But since that help ended, people still face higher prices for housing, food, and other everyday goods without the federal financial support. HUD officials say another key factor was the recent increase in asylum seekers coming to the U.S., often fleeing dangerous conditions in their home countries. In 13 communities that reported being affected by migration, homeless families more than doubled. Overall, the number of people who were homeless in a family unit with children was up 39% from last year. There was also an increase in the number of people overall who were living outside, that is, people who were not in shelters or supportive housing of some kind, as well as increases in those considered chronically homeless, meaning they've been unhoused for multiple years or experienced multiple periods of homelessness, and unaccompanied youth. The number of veterans experiencing homelessness, however, dropped because federal investment through the Veterans Affairs Department and targeted programs that provide coordinated housing first and supported services across federal, state, and local entities help keep veterans housed. This is a best practice response to homelessness that the federal government and local communities fail to offer to all other populations struggling to find a place to live. The point-in-time count also notes that extreme weather disasters contributed to the rise and specifically cites last year's fire in Maui that left 5,200 people still in shelters during the January count. The annual report is widely considered an undercount of the actual number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States, and it does not include people crowded in with family or friends because they can no longer pay for rent or mortgage, those who avoid being seen or counted through a variety of strategies. The count is conducted during the coldest time of the year, when many would leverage every available resource to sleep in a hotel or another warm location. The 2025 point-in-time count is scheduled to be conducted on January 30th, 2025. Next, we have U.S. news about fatal violence from correctional officers and a warning. This describes someone being murdered by correctional officers and the death of a Black person at the hands of a white person. New York State Attorney General Letitia James has released body camera footage documenting the fatal beating of Robert Brooks, a Black man who was incarcerated at the Marcy Correctional Facility in central New York. He was beaten by 3 white New York State corrections officers while his hands were cuffed behind his back. Release of the video has triggered an outpouring of rage and condemnations. Analysis from experts who said the video shows a misuse of force by officers. At least one of the officers involved, Anthony Farina, has resigned following the incident, according to the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. He, along with 2 other officers allegedly involved in the beating, were previously accused of assault, according to court documents obtained by CNN. The New York Attorney General's Office of Special Investigations has opened an investigation into Brooks's death, as has the FBI and the Department of Justice. New York's Attorney General pledged Friday to, quote, use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly, and described the footage of the beating as, quote, shocking and disturbing. Anna Maria Archila and Jasmine Gripe, co-directors of the New York Working Families Party, said in a statement, quote, Robert Brooks is the latest victim of a system that continues to fail. This news summary was sourced from reports by CNN and Axios. Next, on global conflicts, an update about Russia and Europe. On Christmas Day, an undersea power cable connecting Finland and Estonia, known as S-Link 2, was severed, cut in an area where the seabed is difficult to access naturally. Then, on Sunday, Finnish officials discovered another drag on the seafloor that extends 60 miles. These incidents follow similar incidents in November when 2 data cables were cut in the Baltic Sea and an apparent underwater explosion damaged the Nord Stream pipeline that connects natural gas to Russia and the EU through the waters of Sweden and Denmark. Finnish authorities investigating the undersea power cable said over the weekend that they discovered a 60-mile-long anchor drag mark on the seafloor, which they say is linked to a Russian-affiliated vessel. Authorities believe the vessel that produced the most recent damage is part of Russia's, quote, shadow fleet, a network of ships with uncertain ownership that have been used to evade Western oil sanctions imposed over the war against Ukraine. The ship was seized in Finland as it continues its investigations. The primary source used for this summary comes from a report by Rebecca Rosman of NPR. Finally, we have animal news about an albatross. The oldest known bird in the world has laid an egg on the northwestern edge of the Hawaiian Islands. In 1956, when Dwight Eisenhower was president of the United States and Hawaii had not yet been made a U.S. state, researchers banded a bird called Mali in Hawaiian or Laysan albatross in English. She has continued to fly to this location every year to nest. Over more than 72 years, this bird that is now named Wisdom has avoided many man-made threats, like fishing lines and plastic debris scattered throughout the ocean. She is believed to have flown more than 3 million miles over the open sea, enough distance to fly from the Earth to the Moon and back 6 times. Scientists say Wisdom likely spends the year flying in the North Pacific and or the Southern Bering Sea, around the Aleutian Islands, and perhaps west towards the Kamchatka Peninsula and Japan. Over the years, Wisdom has likely produced 50 to 60 eggs and brought as many as 30 chicks to the fledgling stage. The large seabirds normally only have one mate in their lifetime, but after Wisdom's longtime mate, Akia Kamai, failed to return to the atoll, she started performing the albatross's intricate courtship dances with other males and has now laid another egg. Cheers to Wisdom, her mate, and her nestling. Thank you for joining me to hear the news today. If you like what you hear, please like or follow the show in your Substack or other podcast app. This podcast is available in digest form, where you can listen to the articles you are ready to hear and skip the ones you aren't over at groverreadsthenews.substack.com. You can subscribe for free or support the ongoing sustainability of the show by becoming a paid supporter. This week, I've shared a bonus article on newly named plant and animal species in 2024 that is available for paid subscribers. Starting the week of January 20th, I'll be back up to twice a week updates, and I'll be back again with you next week. Until then, know that even though the news can be hard to hear, we don't have to face it alone. We can do it together. Be well.